Hey, and welcome to Chiropractically Speaking, the podcast. I am your host, Dr. Prathap Addageethala, and this is episode 2, how to know if your chiropractor is straight or not. Now, look, I know that title is going to get you guys all up in a tizzy, okay? It's honestly not what it sounds like, okay? I promise you that. What do I mean then? All right, so very, very simple and straightforward, okay? The chiropractic profession is currently undergoing a civil war. This has been the case for many years now. It's not a secret to those of us in the profession, but sadly, it rages on. The two factions have engaged in some pretty nasty tactics towards each other, even though they have the same degrees, they have the same educational backgrounds, they have the same basic training. But why the enmity? Why the whole, back and forth slander? I'll get into that in today's episode. So I've spoken to you guys about the history of chiropractic, its origins, and the backstory about how it came to be in my last episode. If you haven't watched it, I really suggest you give it a watch or a listen if you're listening on a podcast channel. So if you're listening to the podcast channel, the link for the previous episode is below. And if you're watching along on YouTube, the previous episode is right up there. Click, go there. The reason why I'm suggesting this is because it would make a lot more sense if you had listened to the first one and now the second one has much more context. Okay. I promise you it won't be that boring. It's actually just a really interesting, deep dive into the history of chiropractic. So again, my goal for these podcasts is to bring you objective information. Now, you might say, well, you're a practicing chiropractor. You're going to have some sort of a bias here and there. That is true. However, I am not going to take sides. I am not going to say that this is right and that is wrong. I will have opinions. Certainly I will. And everybody's entitled to their opinions, let's be honest. But what I say isn't necessarily gospel. It's just my opinion. You can take it or leave it. It's usually going to be based on some sort of evidence, whether it's experiential, clinic related, or educationally, something that I've learned. But the idea is I want you guys to be able to make informed decisions on whether you take chiropractic care or not, from who you take chiropractic care from, and educating you about the bonuses, the benefits, the pluses of being a chiropractic patient, as well as the drawbacks and the negatives. So you can make completely informed decisions. That's the whole point. Chiropractically Speaking is supposed to bring in all of those interests and give you a little bit more information that you may not have known that you needed, as well as things that may satisfy curiosities about the profession at large, which is fairly new in India. So let's get into episode 2. Now, this episode is literally going to divide my audience, and especially when it comes to my colleagues. So sorry in advance, guys. The idea is that, as I mentioned before, the chiropractic profession is in a turf war. We have two distinct factions. They don't always get along. There's a lot of mudslinging back and forth, and I'm really unhappy about it. I really wish that the chiropractic profession could just come together. We could be one, you could be united. Doesn't matter which way you produce your results, as long as you're producing your results, as long as you're helping your patients, it should be fine the way you practice. Unfortunately, that's not the case. We have a lot of people out there who believe that the way they practice is the correct way. And we have a lot of people out there who demean other people who've practiced differently. Again, tolerance is a very big key here. But when we establish a little bit more of the reasons behind these divides, you can kind of chalk out a little bit more of a clear picture of, well, why is this even happening? Okay. So the two sides of this particular divide include terminology. Okay. So I'm going to try to be as slow with the terminology as you can, so you can pick it up along the way if you're listening. If you're watching on YouTube, then hopefully the subtitles will help. I'm not picking on anybody. I speak English. I watch English movies with English subtitles. Okay, so that's just how I am. All right. So the two terms, the two groups, we got on the one side, we got the straights, and on the other side, we got the mixers. I don't know who made up these terms, guys, but they're kind of fun and jokes, but straights and mixers. Okay. We're going to start our discussion on straight chiropractors, and we'll join in with the mixers. And then I'm going to share with you my personal take and where do I stand on this whole divide. Which chiropractor am I? You'll get an idea soon enough. Now, again, if you disagree with something I said, if you think that there's something that's more accurate, if there's a detail that I conveniently left out, let me know in the comments, okay? I'm happy to discuss this with you. This is, basically it's educational for most people. It's repetitive for some people. Some people don't even want to listen to this. So however you fall on that spectrum, let me know in the comments, okay? All right. Okay, so straight chiropractors believe in a little bit more of the philosophical spectrum of the chiropractic paradigm. Okay, these are chiropractors who really idolize and believe in people like D.D. Palmer and B.J. Palmer, the OG chiropractors of the world. Okay. These are guys who trailblazed the profession. These are guys who put their necks on the line. They got arrested for being chiropractors and continue to fight the good fight. So we owe a lot of our existence to those individuals. There's countless other people to add to that list, but those are the two names that are the most famous and the most identifiable. Chiropractors who follow these principles often refer to something called the Green Books. The Green Books are a set of books actually bound in green leather, hence the name. And they're basically a bunch of thoughts, musings, meanderings of the mind of D.D. Palmer's. And they contain a lot of information about how he came about thinking about the word chiropractic and his experiences with it and what it's supposed to do, how it's supposed to help someone, etc. So these green books have been known to be called the holy grail of chiropractic philosophy, literally containing the original creator's main thoughts. So we associate straight chiropractors with the green books quite a bit. In many colleges, which are essentially philosophically led chiropractic colleges, they have a real strong curriculum with philosophy, and they teach out of the green books, or at least feature them prominently. So that's something that not every college does. So again, even from a fundamental standpoint, from an educational standpoint, a college can be identified as either a straight college or a mixer college just by the way they teach and what topics they teach, how much they teach of each topic. So this is how deeply rooted this particular philosophical divide goes. Sometime later, after the Green Books came out, a chiropractor named Ralph W. Stevenson laid out a set of 33 principles. And these principles were very, they led from one to another, and there's 33 of them. And it was supposed to outline the essential nature of what chiropractic is, who a chiropractor is, what a chiropractor is doing, and how it's affecting their patient. I'm going to read you the first two of these principles, and you'll get an idea of where this is coming from and how deeply philosophical this is. Now, chiropractors that follow these 33 principles to a T, they usually call themselves the principled chiropractor. So straight or principled chiropractors are usually synonymous. It's the same jargon. So the first two chiropractic principles from Stevenson's 33 principles go like this. Number one, the major premise: a universal intelligence is in all matter and continually gives to all its properties and actions, thus maintaining it in existence. Number two, the chiropractic meaning of life. The expression of this intelligence through matter is the chiropractic meaning of life. So you can see how the principles build on each other. It's referring to principle one in principle two, and onwards through all 33. Okay, so straight chiropractors, they believe in D.D. Palmer, B.J. Palmer. They follow their beliefs, and they very strongly hold into their daily practices what was originally thought of chiropractic. Chiropractors who perform straight chiropractic or straight chiropractors rely on spinal checks and x-rays. And these are to establish misaligned vertebra, which they refer to dogmatically as subluxations. I'm going to use the word dogma because I like the word dogma. I don't really care what it means to you. If you think that that means that I'm spending more time on one side of the aisle than the other, that's fine. I don't use subluxation in my dialogues, but that's okay. You can, no problem. So the belief is that misalignments in the spine cause disease, or as D.D. Palmer would suggest, dis-ease or lack of ease in the body. This is another common phrase that straight chiropractors use. They also map each spinal nerve to a particular issue in the body. So, example, if there is a bone that is not quite in good alignment, subluxated, it is putting pressure or irritating a nerve that goes to another section of the body. This is illustrated in a very, very interesting chart called the Merrick chart. Now, again, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see a picture of the Merrick chart. And if you're listening on a podcast channel somewhere, we'll include a picture of the Merrick chart below in a link. So the Merrick chart, if you look at it carefully, is really, really, really detailed. There's tons of information that you can get from it, and you can trace it all the way through from the left to the right, or sometimes from the right to the left, depending on how it's oriented. But the idea is that each level of the spine tracks to a particular area of the body, and therefore issues with said areas of the body can be traced back to the spine. This is, in a nutshell, the earliest form of chiropractic and the truest form of chiropractic. Straight chiropractors barely include any other modalities or other treatments into their practice. They're straight chiropractors, straight chiropractic, only chiropractic. So their belief is that the chiropractic adjustment should fix most issues. Again, in generality speak, a lot of straight chiropractors are also anti-vaxxers. They believe that the power that made the body heals the body. That's a common phrase you'll hear in straight chiropractic clinics. Think about that. You weren't chosen to be born. Some set of factors aligned to create you. And within your body, there exists a particular power that allows it to heal. If you cut yourself, you don't have to take a medicine in order for it to heal, mostly. You'll watch it bleed, and then it'll dry, and then it'll clot, and then it'll scab, and then it'll scar. That's it. Healed. You didn't have to do anything about it. So chiropractors who practice straight chiropractic, they really, really, really push this deep, where your body, if it's corrected, if the spine is in perfect working order, you should have no disease. Your immune system should function better. Your bowels should move smoothly. You should sleep well. Let's jump on some other terminology that you might hear from a straight chiropractic office or from a straight chiropractor himself. Now, first of all, straight chiropractors are not just straight chiropractors. They're straight chiropractors with a T-O-R in capital. And they don't practice chiropractic. They practice chiropractic with a T-I-C in capitals. It's very important to know that. You may also hear straight chiropractor battle cry once in a while that says one bone. And this is an homage to early chiropractors like B.J. Palmer, who believe that adjusting C1 or trivia time. So, all right. I know it's just kind of randomly right in the middle of our conversation, but today's trivia question is, what is the first bone of the spine called? You can leave us a comment below, but I'll give you a hint. Okay. All right. So leave us a comment if you know what the answer is. People believe that if you adjust, or early chiropractors believe that if you adjust the first cervical spine, the first bone in the cervical spine, you will cure most diseases. And 95% of them at least. And the other 5% of diseases can be fixed by adjusting other joints in the body. They also have been, these are things that I hear often, and these are things that I see a lot of. There's a phrase, above, down, inside, out. That is a phrase that straight chiropractors often use when referring to the way the body heals. Above, down, meaning from a power, God, if you want, another celestial being. The power to heal comes from above, down, and it starts from inside and comes out. So superficial things aren't going to work. What you need to fix is what's way inside, and that is the spine. Okay, so that wraps up our jargon session with Straight Chiropractic. This is a touchy subject because a lot of it relies on historical data, okay? Historical information that preserves the ideas that were initially put into chiropractic. Now, ultimately, and this is what I believe, I think that straight chiropractors hold on to these ideas because they want to remain a separate and distinct profession from every other profession. There is no other profession that exists within the realm of complementary and alternative medicine. In fact, straight chiropractors will come after me by saying that because they don't believe we're alternative medicine practitioners. They believe we're alternative to medicine, which is a huge difference. They would also think that if we give up any amount of this stuff, any amount of the word subluxation, the Merrick chart, the idea that nerve irritation causes disease, if we give up these ideas of innate intelligence and stop reading the green books and don't follow the principles, chiropractic will merge with other similar professions and be washed away to the time of history. So in terms of preservation, I completely understand. We're always under attack. As we mentioned in the previous episode, pseudo chiropractors, fake chiropractors are popping up all over the place with less than no education, and people are going to them. People are just saying, oh, that's fine. I'll go to that guy. He's saying he's a chiropractor. It's fine. So how do we define who's a chiropractor? Who do we trust as a chiropractor? If they don't believe in the principles, if they don't follow through with what the ancient chiropractors did, how are they really chiropractors? Now we enter the mixer conversation. Okay. So the mixers generally they consider themselves the evolved chiropractor. They believe that the straight chiropractors are old and gummy and they're crusty. The ideas that they espouse are not good, and the profession in general should evolve. We can't be held back by these old ancient ideas because the world changes. Professions evolve. That's the idea of mixing. Mixers generally include things like physiotherapy, rehabilitation, hot packs, things that will help aid in a musculoskeletal or a neuromusculoskeletal issue. Mixers generally consider themselves more scientific in nature, as opposed to the straight philosophical orientation. Mixers often believe that science is the root of all success. Mixers generally include things that they believe science indicates are good ideas. In other words, what does the research say that we can do? What does the research say is effective? And how does the research improve the outcomes of what chiropractors do? So you'll often find a mixture of methods used in a mixer's office, such as even things like dry needling, acupuncture, and maybe even herbs, supplements, nutrition, things like that. Mixers also try to look beyond the spine. Mixers usually include some form of muscular treatment, as well as whole body holistic treatments, such as like nutrition, maybe even naturopathy, and other types of modalities. They have a wider approach when it comes to treatment methods, as well as with diagnosis. So many mixers don't believe in x-raying every person who comes to their office. Some of them will often say, okay, let's look at alternative imaging. So even diagnostic ultrasounds or MRIs, if it's possible to refer to those types of things. They will mostly adhere to conservative guidelines on radiological interventions, and they'll adhere very, very closely to insurance guidelines as well. So many places around the world are insurance driven, and unfortunately, insurance drives the market in terms of what a chiropractor can and cannot do or prescribe for. So in these particular cases, you'll find that mixers often adhere to strict limitations in insurance plans, whereas straight chiropractors may end up not worrying about what the insurance asks for or can pay for. They usually recommend based on what the patient needs. A lot of straight chiropractors live lavish lifestyles because they make lots of money and they see tons and tons and tons of patients a week. Many mixers do not. And as such, there is a little bit of that. I feel like there's a bit of jealousy there too. But again, it is what it is. Chiropractors who are straight chiropractors typically have high volume practices. Mixers usually include other modalities, so their treatment times actually are more. So there's also a divide in terms of their practice quality, practice time, practice speed, and the number of people they can see in a day. Straight chiropractors often refer to mixers as physiopractors or they abhor this idea of chiropractic physicians because they don't want anything to do with medicine. But when mixers use the word chiropractic physician, they try to elevate their station so in the eyes of the straight chiropractors. So a lot of people wonder, well, Doc, where do you sit on this line? Okay. And I'm going to tell you where I sit. I mean, it's kind of obvious from our discussion so far where I sit, but so I'm going to tell you a story. This is from when I was a student. I had actually traveled to the West Coast, San Francisco, Life West. So I was actually invited there as a student because I had won an award from the International Chiropractic Association, the student version. And it was literally walking into a lion's den. I'll tell you why. So the college that I went to, New York Chiropractic College, which is now known as the Northeast College of Health Sciences. So our college was what we would call a mixer college or an evidence-based college. Mixers often try to use that term evidence-based. And the straights often try to say, hey, look, we use evidence too. So it's a hard one to talk about. But anyway, I came from NYCC and I went over to Life West, and Life West is a hardcore philosophy-driven program. They really believe in a lot of the philosophical elements, and a lot of the chiropractors who graduate from their practice that way. And they're great chiropractors, don't get me wrong. So when I had gone over there, a lot of people were like, what are you doing here? A lot of the students were looking at me like that. I remember there was one, it was a nice couple of days. I got to stay over there for, I think it was 2 nights, and it was great. We got to meet a lot of people. There was lectures, there was seminars, there was a great dinner. It was a lot of fun. I got to meet a lot of really interesting people, and it was San Francisco. I'd never been to California before. So we got a chance to meet a bunch of people. And so we were also paired off with, people we'd never met before in the hotel. So I stayed with one of the students who was graduating soon, and his name was Matt. And, he was just generally asking me so what's it like over there? He's asking me wild questions. I heard you guys don't adjust over there at NYCC. It was really eye-opening. They really believe some wacky things. And, I laid the table straight, and we had a really great dialogue. He was a nice guy. So in one of the excursions, we were able to go and explore a bit in San Francisco. So finally, some of the kids who were going to college over there, they kind of had gone on this trip with me, and they finally they're curious. They asked me some questions. They're like, so, have you read the green books? And I said, no. And they're like, so do you know the 33 principles by heart? And I was like, no. And they were like, so are you a straight or are you a mixer? And I'm like, look, guys. And I had really no idea what else to say about it. I'm like, look, you guys can call me whatever you want. You can call me Caesar salad if you want. But I'm just there as a chiropractor to help my patient. I'm not there to pick sides of this battle. I don't care for it. I believe some of what you believe. I believe somewhat of what I've been taught. I think that both sides have merit. So if you can pigeonhole me on one side or the other, you want to talk down to me because I don't practice the way you do, just understand that I'm trying to do exactly what you're trying to do, and that's the best for the patient. So you can call me whatever you want. Actually, if you want me to not dance around the subject and just call it a spade, I would say that I was more of a mixer. However, I do strongly believe in a lot of the principles that they do believe in too, where I do believe that there is something called an innate intelligence. I do believe that the body can heal itself. I do believe that you do need to change the way your spine functions in order for you to find optimal health. I do believe that chiropractic care can help you in a number of ways that are both researched and not. Like, we can talk about our friend Harvey Lillard, right? Again, listen to the last episode. It'll make more sense. So Harvey was a deaf man who was also the first ever recipient of a chiropractic adjustment on record. Now, he was a deaf man prior to getting adjusted. He got adjusted and then he could hear. We established that chiropractic care can't cure deafness, but tell that to Harvey Lillard. So in some ways and some existences, you can't change what you see, feel, and hear. If you have back pain for 15 years and you get adjusted by a chiropractor and suddenly you have zero pain, that's not a mystery. There's nothing that changed other than that adjustment. So doesn't the power of the body heal the body? And that being said, you can explain it through science. You can say, all right, so so-and-so's pelvis was rotated off and it was putting pressure on this particular area and this muscle was never getting released because he crossed his legs. And you can do the math that way. And that can be true. So both sides have merit, and that's where I stay. I believe in both sides. And that's kind of a lame way to say that I'm neither, but based on the practice that I do own and the type of practice that we work with, Atlas Chiropractic is a very mixer-based chiropractic center. However, we do employ chiropractors of all different types, shapes, and beliefs. I'm a strong believer that a chiropractor should find their own way. They should find their own footing. They should practice the way they feel works the best for them. Okay? I think that if we have a great collection of chiropractic minds in our offices, it gives us the best possibility to treat the most people in the most diverse way. It allows the patient to have choice. It allows them to decide, well, I want somebody who really, really believes that what they're going to do is going to help me. And I want somebody to come in and say, well, I want to know who's the most scientific and the most researched guy here, and I want to work with them. Whatever you believe is going to help you, we want to provide. So that's the way I stand with my practice. That's the way I stand with the whole dichotomy in this profession. I think that chiropractic is a beautiful thing. It's a gift to the planet. And I think that anybody who practices chiropractic is going to benefit hundreds, if not thousands of people in their lifetime. So for the people out there who have some doubts about what chiropractic does and can't do or doesn't do, or what does the research not cover, chiropractic care in general doesn't fit scientific norms. Okay. So science is supposed to be replicable. It's kind of a requirement for science to proceed. If I can measure 0.25 milligrams of a particular drug and I can measure it against a particular hormone, we can measure in a particular audience. Let's say we are talking about 35-year-old men, right? So if that's the case, and that's what science wants, how can a 5'10" person in my case be measured against a 6'10" person who's also a chiropractor? Wouldn't the physics be all different? Wouldn't the force and the rotation and the movement patterns be different? Even if we were twins, identical twin with this exact same DNA, gone to the same school, graduated with the same GPA, the difference between the two adjustments that myself and my twin gave could be there because of our experience of the world. So by definition, chiropractic is not scientific. However, we do have science-based research that shows that it is effective. So that about sums up my discussion about the difference between straights and mixers. I've given you my take on where I stand. I've given you a little bit of, a personal story about where I stand, it's really kind of great that we have this ability to talk about these things and give you lots of background knowledge on who to go to, what types of things exist. So if you ever end up in a chiropractic practice somewhere in the world at some point and they start talking a certain way, you at least know where they're coming from and you can choose, right? As somebody from the public, you have an idea of what people do in their practice. So finally, my curiosity is, and this is something else that you guys can leave in the comments below, which would you choose? Would you rather go to a mixer or would you rather go to a straight chiropractor? Both are valid professionals with licenses that can help you, okay? And in future episodes, I am going to be interviewing a couple of people from both sides, and we can get their fresh perspectives on what's going on in the industry right now and the major differences between the two factions. It'll be very interesting to get another person's perspective on it. And I'm full of very, very nasty questions. We'll get all the dirt from both sides. So that's something that we can expect in upcoming episodes. So stay tuned for those if you're curious and interested. So that wraps up episode 2 of Chiropractically Speaking. I am your host, Dr. Prathap Addageethala. If you liked what you heard, like, subscribe, and share, and definitely leave your comments below. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you didn't like. Tell us what you'd like to hear about, because we're all about listening to your ideas. This is a podcast for you. I want to talk about stuff that you want to know. All right. So until next time, I'll see you then. Take care and goodbye.